Hi, my name is Sam. If you are just starting to learn PowerPoint, this video is exactly for you. Today, using a clear and practical example, I will show you how to create a presentation from scratch. You will learn how to design slides, work with templates, use animation, and apply eye-catching transitions. All the material will be explained in a simple and easy-to-understand way. Even a complete beginner will be able to follow along. After watching this video, you will become a confident PowerPoint user and will be able to create your very first presentation. Enjoy watching. After launching PowerPoint, the Start page appears, where you are offered two options: create a new presentation or open an existing file. All previously created and saved presentations are displayed in this area. You can open any of them and continue editing. To return to the Start page, I click on the File tab. Just above, there are templates for creating a new presentation. In fact, there are many more of them, and you can find a suitable option using the search bar or by browsing one of the available categories. However, before you start editing a ready-made template, you need to master the basic PowerPoint skills, so I will go back and choose a blank presentation. Now I have moved from the Start page to the presentation editing window. At first glance, it may seem that everything here is too complicated and it's unclear where to begin. Don't worry, we'll go through everything step by step, and you'll see that there's nothing difficult about it. I often compare the PowerPoint workspace to a regular desk. Imagine that in front of you is a blank sheet of paper that needs to be turned into a presentation slide. You need to type text, insert images, and design the layout. To do this, you use tools, pens, pencils, a ruler, and others stored in the desk drawers and compartments. You just need to take the right tools and start working. The same applies to the PowerPoint workspace. It resembles a desk. In the center, there is a blank sheet, the slide. And at the top of the window, there are panels and tabs with the tools you need for designing, which I will soon teach you how to use. This area is called the ribbon. All the icons here are grouped into separate sections, which helps the user quickly navigate and find the necessary tool among all this variety. For example, I am now showing you the group designed for working with fonts. All the icons in it are individual tools that allow me to change the font type, as well as its color, size, and so on. If you click this button, a special window will open for more detailed font settings. Above the groups are the tabs. Each tab contains its own groups of tools. I am using Microsoft 365. If you have a different version, there may be slight differences in the placement of tabs or icons, but there is no significant difference. Therefore, you can watch this video and learn how to create presentations even using older versions of the program. Before you start designing the slide, I recommend saving your presentation file right away. You can save it either to the cloud or to your device. I'll choose the second option. Just select a suitable location, come up with and type a file name, and then click the Save button. From this moment, a new file appears on the Start page, which means everything was done correctly. To save all further changes in this document, use this icon with a floppy disk image. Alternatively, press the Ctrl and S keys on your keyboard at the same time. If AutoSave is available in your version of the program, turn it on and all changes will be saved automatically. Before designing the slide, I also recommend planning its design in advance. For example, you can take a sheet of paper and make at least rough sketches of what you want to show. I also advise preparing a separate file with the presentation text in advance. It will be much more convenient to copy and paste text fragments into the presentation instead of coming up with the text on the fly and typing it manually. Now I will create the first slide based on this example. It looks stylish, but you don't need special design skills to create it. Everything is done using simple shapes, which is perfect for beginners. On the Insert tab, I will click the Shapes icon and choose Rectangle. Now you need to click on the area of the slide where you plan to place the shape. That was the first method. The second method is to hold down the left mouse button and adjust the size of the shape. At the same time, if you also hold down the Shift key, the proportions of the shape will be locked during transformation, which can be very important in some cases. Once you've decided on the size of the shape, release the left mouse button, and it will be added to the slide. After objects are added, they can also be edited and moved. Some of the most recent actions related to presentation design can be undone. This option is useful if you accidentally make a mistake. To use it, click the icon with an arrow pointing to the left. I have just clicked it once and undone my last action. Accordingly, to undo several actions, you need to click it several times. As you can see, the shapes disappeared because I just undid my previous actions. Conversely, to redo an action, click the icon with the arrow pointing in the opposite direction. The most convenient way to perform these actions is by using keyboard shortcuts. Pressing Ctrl and Z at the same time undoes an action, and Ctrl and Y redoes it. This way, you can easily correct mistakes in the editor by stepping back several actions. So now I have two shapes on my slide. Notice that when I click on a shape, an additional tab appears on the ribbon called Shape Format. This tab contains groups of tools designed for various actions with the selected shape. For example, if you click this icon, you can change the color. If you want to apply the same settings to multiple objects, select them one by one while holding down the Control key. In this case, all further settings will be applied to them collectively. I'll show you this with a clear example. As you can see, all changes affect both shapes equally. Of course, I'm explaining the simplest and most basic things right now, but it's important to understand these details well. A similar effect can be achieved by grouping objects together, but I'll talk about that a bit later. Now, I'll show you how to remove the outline from shapes. To do this, click here and choose the No Outline option. Let's take a look at the sample slide. It has two main shapes that overlap each other and have a non-standard form. In addition, there is a small white gap between them. In fact, there are several ways to transform shapes like this, and I will show you the simplest and most effective one. First, you need to position the shapes correctly on the slide. I will click on the shape located on the left side of the slide. Then go to the options and click this icon to bring it to the front, since, at the moment, it is overlapped by the neighboring shape. Now I will click the Edit Shape button and choose the Edit Points command. Look, small black squares have appeared along the edges of the object. You can move them by holding down the left mouse button, thereby changing the shape of the object. This allows you to create a custom shape however you like. This was just a brief demonstration of how this option works, so now I will undo a few of my recent actions and set the shape that suits my slide. Alright, to add a small amount of empty space between the shapes, you can use a simple and clever trick. To do this, select the shape located on the left side of the slide. Then hold down the Control key, and, using the left mouse button, move it slightly to the right. This way, I have copied the shape. All that's left is to change its color and move it one layer lower. To avoid confusion with the placement of objects, you can open a special menu called Select. A panel appears on the right, listing all the objects on this slide. Here you can switch between them, which is very convenient when there are many objects and they overlap each other. Each object can be hidden or shown. The lock icon is used for locking. When it is active, the object becomes fixed, meaning I can't accidentally move it to another area of the slide. You can also rename objects in this menu by double-clicking their names. However, the main advantage of this menu is the clearer control over the stacking order of objects. For example, this white shape is currently on the top layer and covers all the other objects on the slide. However, by holding down the left mouse button, you can move it to any other layer. The same applies to the other objects as well. Now I will continue designing the slide and add a few more shapes. To open the Advanced Format Settings menu, right-click on the shape and select Format Object. Here, I will add a bit of transparency to the white line that extends beyond the object. This means that the entire copied object has become half transparent. In the same way, I will adjust the transparency of the circular object. Pay attention to the red dashed lines that appear when you move a shape. They serve as guides that help you align objects relative to each other. For example, right now, 2 lines are displayed on the screen, which means that the small circle is positioned exactly in the center of the large circle. To deselect an object, you can press the Escape key or click on any empty area, either on the slide itself or outside of it. In fact, you can also add transparency to specific areas of an object. I'll show you how this works using this shape as an example. Among the fill options, you need to choose a gradient. This menu contains ready-made presets as well as customization settings. I will add slight transparency to the center of the shape, and later it will blend nicely with the background image that I will place 1 layer below. It's time to add a title and a subtitle. I already have all the text typed in a text editor, so I'll simply copy it and adjust the font. I remind you that on the Home tab, there is a separate group of tools for font settings. To make the line perfectly straight, you need to hold down the Shift key. The first slide is almost ready. All that's left is to add 2 images. I recommend downloading suitable images for your presentation in advance. The website Pinterest.com can help you with this. There are many good images there for every taste. Just enter your query in the search bar and download the image you like to your device. You can also use other sources. The main thing is to make sure the images are of good quality, meaning they should be sharp. Otherwise, your presentation will not look good. I have already downloaded suitable images for the first slide in advance, and now I'll show you how to correctly add them to shapes as a fill. First, you need to select the shape, and then in the fill options, choose Picture. In the window that opens, you will be asked to specify the image source. I will click this option since the required images are already on my computer. The image has been successfully added as the shape fill, and now an additional tab called Picture has appeared in the settings. some options are currently unavailable. This is because at the beginning of the lesson, I locked the movement of this shape. So now I need to return to the selection menu and remove the lock. Now all the options should be available. Yes, as you can see, I now have the ability to edit the size and position of the image in the crop section. Also, in this tab, I will add a bit of sharpness and color saturation. Done. Now, using the same method, you can format the neighboring shape as well. The first slide is completely finished. Keep watching this video to learn even more useful information. Now, it's time to create the next slide. Pay attention to this area. If you right-click here, a menu will open with an option called New Slide. I click it, and a new slide is created. You can also do this using the special icon located on the ribbon. If you click a little lower, you can display standard layouts and create a new slide according to the selected option. The order of slides can be easily changed by simply dragging them. If you have an unnecessary slide, select it and press the Delete key. Layouts already contain predefined placeholders for text and objects. You can type any text into these fields and also add your own images, shapes, tables, videos, and so on. All these elements can be modified and moved as you wish. If you want to change the layout of an already created slide, you can do this by clicking the corresponding icon on the ribbon. The slide size can also be changed. To do this, go to the Design tab and click this icon. Here you can choose a standard aspect ratio or set a custom size. However, this will change the size of all slides in your presentation. Unfortunately, setting an individual size for a single specific slide is not supported in this program. Perhaps there is simply no demand for it among users. Next, in this tab, you can set a unified style for the presentation. In fact, there are more detailed style and layout settings that many people are not aware of, and I'll be happy to share this information with you. On the View tab, click the Slide Master icon. Look, the very top layout is the parent, and all the others are child layouts. This means that all changes made to the parent layout will automatically be duplicated across all other layouts in this group. For example, Let's assume that all slides in your presentation should include your organization's logo. Simply add it to the main layout, and it will also appear on all the other slides. I don't have a logo, so as a visual example, I added this circular shape instead. To hide it on a specific layout, you need to check this checkbox. So, my example is ready, which means we can close this menu. As you can see, a circle has appeared on all slides, and it is a locked object. That is, it cannot be selected or modified in any way. It is here as well. It's just being covered by another shape. The point is that it's best to work on creating slide masters before you start designing the actual presentation. This gives you a whole range of advantages. You can modify an existing template or create a new one. To do this, click the corresponding icon. The new template is ready, and you can assign it a name. Now you can customize it according to your preferences and use it as a slide master for your presentation. Pay attention to the tools located on the ribbon. If for some reason you don't want to display the graphical elements of the parent master, for example this circular logo, just check this box and it will disappear. In the same way, you can remove headers and footers as well as the title. All elements, along with the slide style and font settings, are also available on the ribbon. As for fonts, you can configure up to 5 different font sets and switch between them. Now I'll show you how this works. Look, a new template that I just created has appeared in the list of templates. Using these 2 buttons, I can switch between the font settings. You can also change fonts in existing text. The advantage of slide masters is that you define a consistent style for the entire presentation in advance, and you don't have to adjust fonts separately for each slide. That's why I recommend starting your work by creating layouts and masters. If necessary, you can add additional groups of layouts. To do this, click the Insert Slide Master icon. The new group also has its own parent master, whose style will be repeated across all layouts in that group. This way, I've created 2 independent groups of layouts, and now you know how this works. Alright, in this lesson I deliberately won't use these layouts so that during the learning process, I can demonstrate as many slide design techniques as possible that every beginner should know. Therefore, I will undo the latest changes and create a new, completely blank slide. At this point, I won't be able to undo my recent actions using the Ctrl+Z shortcut and return to the moment when I finished designing the first slide, because there were too many actions and only some of them can be undone. So keep this in mind and undo unnecessary actions in time. Otherwise, as in my case, you'll have to fix things manually. On the first slide, I showed you how to add an image as a shape fill, but there are other ways as well. You can simply copy or drag an image file directly onto the slide. On the Picture Format tab, there are many tools for working with the added object. If you need to crop unwanted parts of the image, click the crop icon. Then select the area you want to keep in the final result and press the Enter key. That's how I cropped the image. There are also various style and effect presets here. If you don't find a suitable preset, you can manually adjust the style. Just right-click and choose Format Picture. Here you can control the intensity of each effect. Now I'll show you another way to add an image to a slide. Sometimes you don't need to download an image from the internet at all. You can simply take a screenshot and paste it onto the slide. For example, I have a video in which I saw a frame suitable for my presentation. I'll rewind the video to that moment and pause it. Then I'll open it in full screen mode and press the Print Screen key. The screenshot is saved to the clipboard, and to paste it onto the slide, you just need to press Ctrl+V. Now I'll continue designing the slide, and you watch carefully and remember how to use the various tools. Sometimes it's convenient to group certain objects together. This allows you to apply the same settings to all of them. While holding down the Control key, I'll select these 4 elements one by one and group them. Look, an additional bounding box has appeared. When it's active, you can apply common settings to all elements in the group. However, the ability to edit individual elements is still preserved. I remind you that the selection pane, which we discussed on the first slide, makes navigation much easier. In it, you can easily switch between objects and move them from one layer to another. Notice that the group of objects is also displayed here. If you want to ungroup them later, just click the corresponding icon. I won't do that though, because later I'll apply a shared animation to these objects, so it's more convenient for me to keep them grouped. This brings the design of the second slide to an end. If you're using Microsoft Office 365, you have a built-in tool that helps you design slides. Look, I've just added a title, and now let's see what PowerPoint suggests. I've just activated the Designer feature, and a panel with several design options has appeared on the right side of the screen. That means the program analyzed the slide content and suggested layouts for me. Every time you make changes to the slide content, whether it's text, a shape, or another element, you can use this built-in designer and get quite stylish slides in just a few seconds. So, feel free to experiment. When creating a presentation, it's quite common to need to remove the background from an image. Of course, there are many third-party programs and neural networks that can do this, but PowerPoint also has this option built in, and now I'll show you how to use it. First, click on the image and go to the Picture Format tab. On the left side of the ribbon, there's a tool called Remove Background. Click on it. The program analyzed the image, but couldn't accurately determine where the background ends and the person begins, so some parts of the image were incorrectly marked for removal. You can fix this using the 2 tools in the top left corner of the screen. I manually mark areas to keep and remove, essentially giving the program small hints, and this time it gets it right. To finish removing the background, click here. Done. Now I'll fully finish designing this slide, and you can once again watch how it's done. So, you already have some basic knowledge, which means it's time to show you how to use ready-made presentation templates that I mentioned at the very beginning of this video. To choose a template, go to the File tab. Click here to display more template options. For example, let's open this template. As you can see, the slides are already fully designed and can be edited for your own presentation. Essentially, these are standard objects such as shapes, images, and text, so you can easily replace them. As for the locked style elements, they are also available for editing. You just need to open the layout settings window I talked about earlier. This way, absolutely any slide element can be changed or removed. Alright, I hope everything is clear so far and that I've explained these basic PowerPoint nuances in enough detail. Now let's look at a common situation where you don't need the entire template, but only a single slide from it. For example, I already have a small presentation and want to supplement it with a slide from a template. To do this, I'll click on this slide, then right-click and choose Copy. Then I'll return to my presentation and paste the copied slide. There are different paste options, and if you want the template to be pasted in its original formatting, click here. Done. The slide has been successfully added to the presentation. Since the background elements here are locked, I'll go to the layout settings to edit them. As you can see, there's nothing complicated about it. As for the text, I'll replace it and fast forward this part of the video so as not to waste your time, since you already know how to work with text. So, I've just replaced the text, and now I'll show you how to replace icons inside shapes. To quickly find a suitable icon, use the search bar. I'll replace the remaining icons in the same way. When designing a slide, you may encounter the need to evenly distribute multiple shapes relative to each other. If they're arranged chaotically, you don't have to align them manually. You can save time by using a special option. First, select these objects. Then go to the Shape Format tab. Click the Align icon and choose the appropriate command from the drop-down list. After that, you can group the objects together, making them easier to move around the slide, but you already know about that. To make your presentation look more impressive, add transitions and animation. It's important to remember that the main advantage of a presentation is its engaging content, so try not to overdo the animation. Remember, you're not editing a movie for Netflix, you're just creating a PowerPoint presentation. So, to set up transitions, there's a tab with the same name. Essentially, it contains ready-made presets from which you can choose a transition you like. To see all transition options, click here. Slightly to the right are tools for additional transition settings. There aren't many of them, so you can quickly familiarize yourself with each one. If you need to add a sound to accompany a transition, or, for example, change the speed of the effect, you can do all of that using the tools here. To preview a transition or animation, click the corresponding icon. A smooth fade-in works well for the first slide, for example like this. For the remaining slides, I'll choose something different. If you want to see how everything looks in full screen mode, you need to start the slideshow. There are several ways to do this. You can click this icon or press the F5 key. You can move between slides using the left mouse button, as well as keys such as Enter or the spacebar. You can also use the arrow keys or set up an automatic slideshow, which I'll talk about a bit later. To exit this mode, press the Escape key. There are also other ways to start a slideshow. You can begin either from the first slide or from the current one. Now let's move on to animation settings. There is a dedicated tab for animation on the ribbon. You can animate any objects on a slide. In addition, you can apply a shared animation to a grouped set of objects. Overall, this set of tools is somewhat similar to what you see on the Transitions tab. However, animation settings are a bit more complex. So, I'll click on this group of objects and choose an animation for it. Then I'll group the text objects and assign an animation to them as well. By default, animations are triggered by a mouse click or by the same keys used to move between slides. I think you remember those keys since I mentioned them just a moment ago. So, I click once and the animation of the first group of objects is triggered. After the second click, the next animation appears. Notice the numbers displayed next to the objects. They indicate the order in which the animations appear. When there are many objects, it's recommended to activate the Animation Pane tool. Look, here are the objects that have animations applied to them. You can review them individually or change their order. Now, it's the opposite. This object appears first and only then the neighboring one. If you want all objects to appear at the same time, you need to change the start parameter. Now, I'll show you how to do this. This time, I make a single mouse click, and all objects appear simultaneously. That's why they now all have the number 1 next to them. It means they will appear after one click. If you want the animation to occur automatically without a click, it's more convenient to set it up here. Now the objects appear automatically immediately after the slide transition. In the animation pane, I'll change the order in which the objects appear. Look how this green slider has shifted to the right. In fact, this is the animation offset on the timeline. To make it clearer, I'll slightly change the animation duration and add a pause. This clearly shows what happens and in what order. First, the group of objects on the left appears slowly, then there is a short pause, and after that, the next group of objects appears. All sliders and the timeline can also be adjusted manually. Basically, this is the main thing you need to know about animation, and understanding it won't be difficult. Now I'll set up the animation for my slides and slowly show you all my actions so you can once again clearly absorb the learning material. The animation is ready. I remind you that a presentation is, first of all, your engaging and meaningful speech supported by visual material in the form of slides. So you shouldn't focus all your efforts on animation. Moreover, there are many ways to create impressive effects using simple transitions. For example, all the animation you see right now was created by adding just one transition to each slide. So, to achieve this effect, the first thing you need to do is create a duplicate of the slide. On it, I will change the title font and move it slightly to the right along with the line. Now I'll create 2 more duplicates of this slide. Good. The next step is to make changes to each duplicate according to the theme of your presentation. When you finish designing the slides, select the duplicates while holding down Control, then on the Transitions tab, choose Morph. Let's look at the result. Yes, that's exactly what we need. Would you like to learn another way to create an impressive transition using the Morph preset? Look, I have several slides. On each of them, I'll add 3 circles. Each copy of the circle should be smaller than the previous one. For the fill, choose the background. For the outlines, a semi-transparent white color works well. I'll copy and paste these circles onto the other slides. Now, on these 2 slides, I'll rotate the circles in opposite directions. Almost done. All that's left is to select these slides and apply the Morph transition to them. Let's take a look at the result. Great. In fact, you can master many beautiful transitions and animations, so feel free to experiment. Now it's time to take a closer look at slideshow mode. During a presentation, the presenter can use a highlighter, pen, or laser pointer to draw attention to a specific element on the slide. There's also a tool for zooming into a specific area of the screen, which can be useful as well. In addition, you can jump to any slide directly during the presentation. If that's not enough, you can move on to advanced slideshow settings. This window contains the slideshow options. There's nothing complicated here. As a rule, presenters are mainly interested in manual playback or playback based on set timings. The other options play a secondary role and are adjusted depending on your goals. For example, If you want to disable animation, simply check the corresponding box. And if you want to show all slides except the first one, enter the number 2 in this field, and the presentation will start immediately from the second slide. Now I'll show you how to set up an automatic slideshow. On the Transitions tab, pay attention to the Timing group of tools. At the moment, all slide transitions occur manually via clicks, but if you uncheck this box, the slides will start changing automatically according to the specified time. For example, let me set it to 3 seconds. This way, you can define the display time individually for each slide. And to apply the same timing to all slides, click this icon. As you can see, all slides now have the same display duration, exactly 3 seconds. Just keep in mind that with this method, the same transition presets will be applied to all slides. In that case, you'll either have to accept that or manually change the transitions to ones you prefer. Let's see how it works. Now, the automatic slideshow is running according to the specified timing, without my involvement, which means everything is set up correctly. There's another way to configure an automatic slideshow. To use it, click this icon. Look, a small window appears in the top left corner, informing the user that recording has started. Now I manually advance through the slides, and PowerPoint records and saves the timing so that during the next presentation, the slides will change in exactly the same way. After finishing, I confirm my decision to use the recorded timings. Now, I start the presentation again, and this time, the slides change automatically at exactly the same pace at which I just advanced through them. Another advantage of automatic playback is that you can save your presentation as a video. To do this, go to the File tab. Then, in the Save options, select a file type suitable for video, such as MP4 or Windows Media. Click the Save button and wait a bit while the program completes the process. The video is ready. Now, you can play it and watch it. If you want to record the video with your own voiceover, click the record icon. Make sure your microphone is turned on. You also have the option to connect a camera and record yourself. When you're ready, start the recording. At the end, you'll be prompted to save the video file. Sometimes a presentation may contain dozens of slides, and in that case, I recommend creating sections. This will give your presentation a clear structure and make it easier to navigate. In addition, you'll be able to view each section separately. Just select the desired section, and the slideshow will start showing only the slides included in it. For large presentations, this can be a very convenient solution. Friends, before finishing, I'd like to draw your attention to the flexibility of PowerPoint. In fact, you can add all kinds of objects to your slides: tables, charts, 3D models, and much more. It all depends on your goals and imagination. The main thing is that you now know the basic principles of working with objects, can design slides, set up transitions, animation, and slideshow playback, and can also use ready-made templates. And don't forget that we live in the age of neural networks, so they can also be used when creating presentations. For example, I uploaded an image of this slide to ChatGPT and asked it to generate its own version of the slide with a more attractive design, and as a result, I got this interesting image. Personally, I really liked this option, so AI can indeed help you with presentation design. On the Microsoft website, you can subscribe to an Office version with built-in AI called Copilot, which will become your personal assistant for creating presentations. By the way, I almost forgot to mention that you can add videos directly to a slide. To do this, on the Insert tab, click the video icon. From the list, choose the video source. For example, let me add a YouTube video here. In the search field, enter the link to the video and click Insert. Now, during the slideshow, I can play this YouTube video directly on the slide. I took it from my new channel, and if you liked the presentation and want to learn more about Dubai, follow the link in the description to watch it. Also, subscribe to both of my channels and leave a like if you found my educational material helpful. I wish you success in your learning. Goodbye.